What happens when you put two of the most exciting fighters in the UFC inside the octagon for an interim lightweight title? Well, on January 24, 2026, at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, we got our answer. And trust me when I say this fight absolutely delivered everything we hoped for and then some. UFC 324 was special for multiple reasons. Not only was it the first UFC event of 2026, but it also marked the historic debut of the UFC's new partnership with Paramount Plus. The promotion had just signed a massive $7.7 billion media rights deal, and they needed a fight that would set the tone for this new era. Dana White and his team chose Justin Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett as their main event, and looking back now, that decision was absolutely genius. Before we dive into the actual fight, you need to understand who these two warriors are and what they brought into this contest. Justin Gaethje, the 37-year-old American fighter known by his perfect nickname, The Highlight, came into this bout with a record of 26 wins and 5 losses. Throughout his entire career, Gaethje built a reputation as someone who never takes a backward step, someone who turns every single fight into an absolute war. He already held an interim lightweight title once before in his career, and here he was getting another shot at interim gold. On the other side stood Paddy Pimblett, the 31-year-old fighter from Liverpool, England. Paddy entered the octagon with an impressive record of 23 wins and just 3 losses. The Liverpudlian had been making serious waves in the UFC with his entertaining fighting style and his massive personality outside the cage. He was ranked number 5 in the lightweight division, and this was by far the biggest opportunity of his UFC career. The chance to win an interim title and potentially face the undisputed champion was everything he had been working toward. When fight night arrived, nearly 5 million people tuned in on Paramount Plus to watch this historic event. The energy inside the T-Mobile Arena was electric. Both fighters made their walks to the octagon, and you could feel the anticipation building with every second. The referee brought them to the center, gave them their final instructions, and then the fight was on. From the very first exchange, Gaethje came forward like a man possessed. He immediately started applying pressure, cutting off the cage and looking to unload his trademark power shots. This was vintage Gaethje, the version of himself that made him famous, the fighter who created absolute chaos and forced his opponents into firefights. Pimblett tried to establish his range with some kicks and jabs, but Gaethje kept marching forward, completely unfazed by anything coming his way. Then it happened. Gaethje landed a brutal body shot that caught Pimblett right in the solar plexus. The punch was perfectly placed, and you could see the immediate effect on Pimblett. His body folded slightly, his movement changed, and suddenly he was dealing with serious pain. Gaethje recognized the damage and immediately went for the finish, throwing a combination of punches as Pimblett tried to survive. The Liverpool fighter showed incredible heart and defensive awareness, moving away and clinching when necessary. He made it through that dangerous moment and heard the bell to end round 1. When Pimblett walked back to his corner, his team immediately went to work. They knew their fighter had just survived a critical moment, and they needed to make adjustments. Meanwhile, Gaethje sat calmly in his corner, knowing he had found success early and just needed to keep applying pressure. Round 2 started, and both men came out swinging. Pimblett had clearly regrouped and was now firing back with more confidence. He landed some solid combinations and started working the body with kicks of his own, but Gaethje remained patient, waiting for his moments to counter. Then came another knockdown. Gaethje landed what appeared to be a hard punch, and Pimblett went down again. Gaethje immediately swarmed with heavy shots, looking to finish the fight right there. Pimblett covered up and somehow survived the onslaught, making it back to his feet. The crowd was going absolutely insane at this point. What we found out later made this moment even more controversial. Upon reviewing the replay, it became clear that an illegal eye poke from Gaethje actually caused that knockdown, not the punch. The referee, Mark Goddard, missed the foul completely during the live action. This became a major talking point after the fight, with many people wondering how different things might have been if the foul had been caught. But in the chaos of a Justin Gaethje fight, with punches flying from all directions, you can understand how something like that gets missed in real time. The third round was where we saw Pimblett make his best adjustments of the entire fight. He came out with a different game plan, taking control of the center of the octagon and not allowing himself to get backed up against the fence. He started picking his shots better, landing cleaner combinations, and actually winning exchanges. Gaethje continued his forward pressure, but Pimblett was now meeting him in the middle and making him pay for his aggression. The crowd stood on their feet as these two warriors traded leather in the center of the octagon. Rounds 4 and 5 turned into an absolute war of attrition. Both men were exhausted, both were hurt, but neither was willing to give an inch. Gaethje kept landing devastating shots that visibly damaged Pimblett's face. His nose was broken, his eyes were swelling shut, blood was pouring from cuts, and his entire face was starting to look like raw meat. But here's the thing about Paddy Pimblett that shocked everyone watching. He never stopped throwing punches. He never backed down. He kept walking forward and firing combinations even as his face was being destroyed. The crowd recognized what they were witnessing. At the start of the 5th round, the entire arena erupted in applause for both fighters. It was one of those special moments where everyone watching knew they were seeing something extraordinary. These two men had given everything they had, and they still had 5 more minutes to go. Throughout that final round, the punches kept flying. Gaethje continued his pressure, landing the harder shots and doing the most visible damage. Pimblett absorbed the punishment and fired back with combinations of his own. According to the official UFC statistics, Gaethje outlanded Pimblett 219 strikes to 177 over the course of the fight. The numbers tell part of the story, but they don't capture the sheer brutality and heart displayed by both men. When the final bell rang, both fighters embraced in the center of the octagon. Gaethje told Pimblett he was exactly where Gaethje himself had been not too long ago, fighting for his dreams and leaving everything in the cage. It was a beautiful moment of mutual respect between two warriors who had just gone through hell together. For Pimblett, the loss was heartbreaking, but he had earned something arguably more valuable than a victory. He earned the respect of every single person watching. His performance showed the world that he belonged at the elite level of the lightweight division. The damage to his face told the story of the battle he had just endured. UFC President Dana White took one look at Pimblett backstage and immediately sent him to the hospital.
Pimblett was transported to a local Las Vegas hospital for precautionary scans and treatment. The images of his battered and swollen face circulated on social media, showing just how much damage he had absorbed during those 25 minutes. Fans around the world expressed concern for his health, but also showered him with praise for his warrior spirit. The next day, Pimblett's wife, Laura, provided an update that put fans' minds at ease. She posted a photo of the two of them together with the caption, "Us forever." For everyone asking, he is absolutely fine and will be back. Pimblett was released from the hospital after having his injuries treated, and he even made it to his after-party later that evening. The Nevada State Athletic Commission issued him a 30-day medical suspension, which is standard procedure after a fight like that. Pimblett himself addressed the loss with characteristic honesty and determination. The fight earned both men Fight of the Night honors, along with a bonus payment of $100,000 each. This was especially significant because UFC 324 was the first event under the new Paramount Plus deal, which came with an increased bonus structure. Gaethje, Pimblett, and the other bonus winners became the first fighters to benefit from the UFC's new prize money system, earning double the standard $50,000 bonuses that had been the norm for years. ESPN gave the fight an A- grade, calling it a thrilling battle that was easily the best fight of the night. The Fight Grades article noted that Pimblett's durability was surprising, that he survived several knockdowns while eating a steady diet of Gaethje punches, and that Pimblett refused to go away and had his moments in a loss that could raise his profile despite the outcome. The immediate aftermath of UFC 324 set up multiple intriguing storylines. For Gaethje, the focus shifted to a future unification bout with undisputed lightweight champion Ilia Topuria. This matchup has all the makings of another absolute war, pitting Gaethje's legendary toughness and power against Topuria's devastating finishing ability. Gaethje will likely enter that fight as the underdog, but if UFC 324 proved anything, it's that you can never count out the highlight. For Pimblett, the path forward requires some soul-searching and strategic adjustments. He proved beyond any doubt that he belongs among the elite lightweights in the world. His chin, his heart, and his conditioning are all championship level. However, the fight also exposed some defensive vulnerabilities. He took far too much damage, and against another elite striker, that could lead to a knockout loss. Many analysts and former fighters suggested that Pimblett needs to utilize his grappling more effectively in future fights. His submission skills and ground game are excellent, but he chose to stand and trade with one of the most dangerous strikers in UFC history. The aftermath of this fight brought interesting reactions from across the MMA community. Former UFC middleweight champion Michael Bisping, who knows a thing or two about being tough and resilient, offered his perspective on what Pimblett needs to do moving forward. Bisping emphasized that while Pimblett's toughness is undeniable, he needs to make serious adjustments to his approach. The willingness to engage in wars with elite strikers like Gaethje might be entertaining, but it's not sustainable for a long career. Bisping suggested that Pimblett needs to be smarter with his fight selection and game planning, utilizing his grappling advantages more effectively instead of playing to his opponent's strengths. The lightweight division now finds itself in a fascinating position. You have Ilia Topuria sitting at the top as the undisputed champion, looking absolutely dominant in his recent performances. Gaethje earned his shot at unification and will likely face Topuria sometime in 2026, potentially at a historic venue. There's even talk of the UFC trying to book a fight at the White House in June, which would be an unprecedented moment in combat sports history. Whether that actually happens remains to be seen, but the fight itself is already generating massive anticipation. For Pimblett, the road back to title contention will require strategic matchmaking. He can't afford another loss, especially not another brutal war that leaves him hospitalized. The UFC has several options for his next fight. He could face someone ranked just below him to rebuild momentum, or the promotion might throw him into another high-profile matchup to capitalize on the newfound respect he earned from UFC 324. Names like Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler, or even a rematch scenario down the line could all make sense, depending on how the division shakes out over the next few months. One potential matchup that has gained traction in the aftermath of UFC 324 is Pimblett versus Dan Hooker. These two have had a brewing rivalry for some time, exchanging words on social media and in interviews. Hooker has been critical of Pimblett in the past, questioning his place in the rankings and suggesting he's been given favorable treatment by the UFC. A fight between these two would settle their differences definitively and give Pimblett a chance to get back in the win column against a respected veteran. The grappling advantage would heavily favor Pimblett in that matchup, which might be exactly what he needs after trying to outbox one of the best strikers in the sport. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want to see more in-depth fight analysis, make sure you smash that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss when we drop new content. We've got some massive fights coming up in 2026, and you don't want to miss any of our coverage.